Hi everyone, this is Pete Heiniger, and I want to do part 4 of my journey through chemotherapy. And part 4, I just want to talk about something that is probably the harder part of chemotherapy, in that it's the symptoms that happen. And so I'm going to tell you my journey. Everybody's body is different and everybody approaches things differently. So I keep reiterating this through all of our video series that this is actually my journey. You'll find some similarities. I certainly have I've shared with you a lot of things that are in common, not just with me, but with other cancer fighters. But the way that our bodies respond to chemotherapy will always be different and kind of based on a lot of different variables that are true about each of us. So let's get started. Round 1 chemotherapy, to me, which is pretty common across all the people that I've talked to, is that you are just going to have this, your body is getting these drugs for the first time. You've never faced it before. And so usually there's a harsh reaction. You're going to have a lot of where you're nauseous and you want to throw up. And that's just that's almost a guarantee as you go through that. So here's some things. We've talked about this before, but in the pre-meds that they give you in infusion, they're giving you an anti-nausea, and that anti-nausea is very strong. It lasts for about 72 hours. And so let's just say that was pretty powerful, and that kind of probably made things a little bit better. But for me, when I first was administered those drugs and I took that pump home, and I was actually at home after my infusion in the hospital, that evening, my very first evening, so I take infusion on Wednesdays, so by my first Wednesday, by that evening, I was already throwing up pretty fierce. And that lasted for about all the way through Thursday, and then on into Friday. And it was just nonstop. It was just hours and hours and hours of misery. And I just want to tell you that there's a lot of thoughts that go through your mind when you're doing that. I think the first one is, you've heard about people who hate cancer, who hate chemotherapy. You know, you certainly knew that it was going to be rough and it's not going to be a picnic. And so the first thought that you're going to have is just like, is this just how it's going to be, right? Like, is this just a normal reaction to chemotherapy? And this is just why people lose weight and why people lose their hair and why they do everything else. It's just really, really caustic on your body, and it's going to brutalize you. And this is your journey forward, right? And so that's the first thing. And so what I want to hopefully help you with is that doesn't have to be the case. And so what I didn't know clearly up front was that at any time I could call back into my infusion center, so back to my infusion center where I would receive chemotherapy, and I could have told them what was going on. I'm throwing up, I can't keep, because they prescribed me anti-nausea or oral pills I could take, but I couldn't keep them down. I was throwing up so much, I just couldn't keep them down for them to even work. And so I had no success there. But I could have called in and could have told them, and they would have had me come back into the infusion center, and they would have given me hydration, which would have replaced my fluids, but then they also would have given me anti-nausea intravenously through my IV and my chest port. And so that's huge. If I had known that, I probably would have gone in on Thursday. Instead, I had a scheduled appointment on Friday to have my pump removed for the first time, and I had hydration scheduled. So when I came in, they looked at me and they're like, "Oh no, like, you look horrible." And so then they were scrambling to help me. And so the nurses just scrambled and said, no, you're going to stay here. We're going to get you set up. And so they put me on anti-nausea. They got me hydrated. They gave me everything that I could possibly need. From my pharmacist to my nurses, it was just like all hands on deck trying to help me through that time. And so I just want to tell you, like, be very communicative. I have an app that I can communicate through. I can also call in. And so whatever you have, if you're going through this or a loved one's going through this, whatever they have access to, be highly communicative, because the nurses and the team are there to help you not have to suffer. And if there's anything that they can do to make that suffering less, they're going to do it. And so I would say, yes, I was throwing up. I couldn't keep food down. I was very sick. but at the same time, they came through and really helped me through those earlier processes. I would also say that as I started to get into deeper rounds, like round 4, round 5, I started to adjust. My body got more used to the drugs, and so I would have a tinge of nausea, but not ever where I was throwing up, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. You always kind of have this little, not so great feeling initially, but I was able to control that over time and not throw up, and so that's a big deal. I will say this: you're going to learn this as you're on this journey, that they're going to offer you prescribed medications, and each one may help you with a symptom. Like anti-nausea will help you not throw up, and that's probably good, right? You don't want to be throwing up, and that's probably the biggest thing that you want to eliminate from any of these symptoms. But it also, anti-nausea medication, orally or through your IV, it creates constipation, like severe constipation. So you can get headaches with it. You can be constipated. And when I say constipated, I mean just completely locked up. So that's kind of the give and take. So what I try to do right away is I started adjusting. My body started adjusting. The only time I took anti-nausea was when they gave it to me in pre-meds. I had it at home if I needed it, but I just tried my best not to ever have to take it because I didn't like getting my whole system locked up. And the second thing that you can do is when you go in, kind of understand that that's the case, that they give you a very powerful anti-nausea and it has that ability to really lock you up. And so I would suggest having more stuff like yogurt, protein shakes, meal replacement shakes, things that are more liquid, just during that time period, because that's going to help you not experience so much. So if you are constipated, it's not going to be as bad. Does that make sense? And so I think that's a really crucial thing too that I kind of learned. And with this whole journey, you're just going to have to learn your body. Your body is going to be something that you're learning more and more about, and it's going to be an adjustment. You're going to learn what foods work for you, what foods settle your stomach, and different things like that. And so this is kind of a journey, and you want to keep a journal of those things. A side effect of chemotherapy that I noticed right away was for FOLFOX is one of the drugs is very, very aggressive with your nervous system, your nerves. And so you can develop neuropathy. The first way that I felt it wasn't just in my fingers and my feet, it was in my mouth. So I would drink something cold and it felt like my whole mouth was like freezing over with ice. And it's a weird sensation that you'll have to experience. It's really hard to describe, but it literally feels like wherever the liquid goes down your throat, like every place that it hits, it's like just freezing that place. And so that's the first place I noticed it was sensitivity to cold. And then sensitivity to cold when I was outside, if it was a little bit cold in the mornings or something, and I was walking or I was going out, outside at all, I could notice that my hands would get tingly and numb. But let me tell you this, the one thing that I wish that I would have known, and I've kind of said this before, but I just want to reiterate it, is that when you're communicating with your team, one of the things that you don't want to pass over is if you're on FOLFOX or if you're on a drug that really affects those nerves and can create neuropathy, you've got to communicate that very clearly. Yeah, I had it when I started, like on Wednesday, and then it lasted for X number of days, right? You need to let them know. Because what happened was I just thought this is part of the plan. The big thing is just tough it out. And the longer I can stay on this drug, the better I'm going to be off. And so I just kept going round after round after round, really not telling them about my neuropathy. And the thing is that my neuropathy was growing longer and longer. Like the first couple rounds, I'd have it for the first maybe 3 or 4 days after being home from infusion. And then it would go away. And so that was fine. But pretty soon, as you got in the deeper rounds, that was 4 or 5 days. Then it was 6 or 7 days. Then it was, I don't really lose the tingling in my fingers. And then pretty soon, it really started making my feet almost completely numb. And I mean completely numb. Like if you have ever had a foot fall asleep because you've been sitting crisscross applesauce or something like that, and then you try to stand up on it, that's what I'm talking about. It was that bad, but it's all the time. It doesn't go away. And so one of the things I learned was that this drug can create permanent nerve damage, and the neuropathy and that damage can be permanent. And that's why they want you to be talking about it. And so one of the things I had to do then was like, hey, this isn't going away. And then they're like, oh, okay, well then we got to take you off that drug. And so unfortunately, I haven't had all of my feeling come back, especially in my feet is where I notice it the most. And it makes it hard to walk. It makes it hard because you can't feel when you're stepping on uneven surfaces. You can't feel if you're stepping on rocks and different things like that. You don't have that sensitivity. You've got to watch not stubbing your toe and different things like that. So it is just an odd feeling, and it's very, very difficult. It's not painful for me. Some people's neuropathy does get to a place where it is painful and it hurts. Mine doesn't hurt. It just is numb, and I don't have feeling there, and that's really not fun. So be sure to tell them right away when you feel like there's a elongated period of time and you're having numbness in your feet and hands for a longer period of time. You've got to make sure that you communicate that. Another side effect that I experienced right away was just the taste in my mouth. There was always kind of this metallic taste, and it was kind of just, sometimes it could be just a little bit sour. And so foods that you were traditionally used to eating would taste funny, right? And so that was something that I noticed. I noticed that, citrusy lemon lime stuff, orange stuff was a lot better and kind of overpowered and kind of took away that taste. But so I would do a lot of LaCroix water and different things like that that's flavored with lime, lemon, whatever. And take that. I would do Izzy's, I would do stuff like that because I really wanted something kind of overpower that taste. But it also kind of affected some things that I couldn't tolerate, like something that was super sweet or super fruity, necessarily, like different juices and stuff like that initially were very hard to tolerate because it just kind of made the taste funky, for lack of a better term. So that was the thing. So I guess one of the symptoms is funky taste on a lot of different types of food, drink and solid food. Another thing that I experienced that was kind of a significant challenge to me was just I started having temperature highs and lows. And I don't mean like take my temperature and I was like, feverish or something like that. I just mean I ran pretty hot during chemotherapy. So I would say like, people would be in the room and they might be fairly cold, and I was, extremely hot. Like, just like, can I sit outside? I feel like steam's gonna come off my head, hot where I shouldn't have been. And so those are just things to understand. Like, you may just be careful, like how much you put on or how dress in layers so you can take some off and those things like that. But that was something that I noticed right away. I started noticing a little bit more back and joint, pain. And so here's what I wanted to say about that. One of the greatest things that I decided to do in all of this, and it will really help you if you do it too, and every doctor will recommend to everyone, is do strength training in the gym and make sure that you're getting in there. Cardio is important, and so you always want to do cardio and get walking, running, whatever it is that you enjoy, and so that's important. But strength training and resistance training is really going to keep you flexible. It's going to keep you strong, and it's going to help you kind of endure all of this. And it's going to be no picnic. I get up every morning at 4:45 in the morning. I'm out the door probably about 5:05, and I lift with a good friend of mine named Ben, and we lift every single day that we can. And so but it's a big deal. And one of the things is that if you're laying down and you're in a chair and you're going to have a tendency to not move your shoulders around, not move some things. And strength training is going to keep you moving, getting your joints going and keeping everything moving, and really trying to add some muscle as well if you can. I would just encourage it because I can't tell you how much better I am tolerating chemotherapy than a lot of different people. I walk through infusion. I talk to other people. Everybody looks at me and says, doesn't look like you are even in chemotherapy. You look the same as you did before, and different things like that. And I really attribute a ton of that to obviously the care that I've been given by our healthcare workers. But I mean, beyond that, it's really been working out on a very consistent basis. I don't always feel like I want to. It's not easy to get up and get out of bed, and go when you're experiencing pain, when you might be a little bit nauseous, but you just, if somebody could do something for you, and do what Ben did for me, where he's my partner, he shows up, he picks me up, and he works out with me, that's going to make you more successful. I think if you try to go it alone, if you're very determined and you're great at discipline like that, that's great, then yep, that'll work for you. But if you think that because of circumstances and pain and nausea and different things like that, that you might have a tendency to not go very often or cancel or, just kind of tag out, it's harder to do when you have a partner, right? They have an expectation. They're going to push you. They're not going to take no for an answer. And those are the people that you need in your life. And so if you can find a workout partner that can go with you, I know Ben works every day, so we have to go early so that he can get off to work. But that's easy for me. And working out is a big deal. I don't try to push any boundaries. Like, I'm not like in my youth trying to play football or wrestling or something like that, where I have to, be putting on muscle and always making super big, huge gains or different things like that. But we're getting stronger and we're getting in better shape and we're consistent. And I think that's the biggest thing. But I can't tell you how much that helps me stay strong and power through all this. So I would love to encourage you that before you start to feel achy and all these different things, really be proactive early on and see if you can't get into the gym and get a regular routine going, even during COVID. Because I started my rounds during COVID. We were in my garage and we were using bands and we were using kettlebells and we were using whatever we could to do this training and be consistent every morning. We were also walking in the neighborhood, even in the freezing cold. So just know, whatever you have to do, you can do it and you can be determined to do it, and it doesn't have to cost lots of money. I think I have a Planet Fitness membership that's less than, it's $10 a month or something like that. And so, that's cake. Don't have 2 coffees at Starbucks and you can afford the gym. But I would just encourage you that that's something that will help you kind of trim back the side effects. Another side effect that you experience when you're in chemotherapy is just that you have kind of what I would call drug head a little bit. You're going to, how should I explain drug head? Because it sounds terrible. You're going to have moments. For me in the morning, I'm the most alert. And then if I don't take it easy or take a quick nap or something like that, I can get a little foggy. And that's something that I have noticed. That may not be everybody's journey, but that certainly has been a journey for me. And so you can just be kind of out of it, or you're not processing things as quickly. So if there are things that I'm trying to work on that have to be creative, that need my attention, when you're doing things like that, or you're working and you need to do work, you're going to have to kind of figure out what is that magic moment in your day where you're the most creative, most productive. But you also have to realize sometimes that there's kind of this brain fog, and it really comes from just fatigue. You are going to be more fatigued more often with chemotherapy. It's just the case, right? And so you have to build some routines that aren't fun. For me, it wasn't fun to learn how to take naps. That sucked. To me, I like to just be on, and I don't like to have to go through that. But now more than ever, I've learned that, it's just really good for my body to take a rest, and then I can kind of come back at it later in the afternoon. And so sometimes it's a half hour, sometimes it's an hour. On really rough weeks, like when I was in radiation, that could be 3 hours. It just really have to kind of feel your body, know your body, and know what you need. But I can't stress enough that if you try to overdo it, you're going to just pay in the long run. If you if you don't learn to give yourself rest and give yourself a chance to recover. And so if you can do hot baths, if you got access to like a whirlpool or a sauna or something like that that is with your gym or something like that, that's even better. I don't have those things. I got a big bathtub. I'm not a big bath guy, but I actually started last week. So it only took me 23 rounds to figure out that maybe I should take hot baths because they might help me a little bit. But hopefully you're not as stubborn as I am in that category. The other things that are there are vary, I think, from different people. Some people really hit fatigue hard, and so they felt more laid up during chemotherapy. I have a good friend here in Colorado Springs who went through chemo, and they were hitting him with some pretty strong doses, and he was very much laid up. And I could see, even when I saw video and posting pictures and stuff, that you could just see he was just wiped and exhausted. And that can happen. Like, you may be going through a very strong dose of chemo, and that could happen to you. And so I just, again, just make sure that you're allowing yourself to experience this for you, right? And so that's how I just want to close this part. I could talk about more symptoms. I'm sure there's other people who've gone through chemo. People lose their hair, their eyebrows, their hair, facial hair. Obviously, I didn't get that. And it'd be very weird for me not to have facial hair. But I fully expected that I might lose my hair, but that just didn't happen. But some people do. But if I could just close with this. You're going to hear from me. You're going to hear from a lot of different people that have a lot of different experiences with chemotherapy. And you're going to be very curious because you're about to go through it, or a loved one is about to go through it. And but what I want to say is, you do you. You've got to be about you. And what that means is, I can look at somebody, it got discouraging for me sometimes because even that friend that I mentioned had a really rough time. But then after, I think it was like a quick 4 or 5 rounds, no evidence of cancer, completely released. Well, I mean, I'm 23 rounds in, I still have evidence of cancer, and I'm still on this journey. And so if I got into a comparison contrast between me and that, I feel very discouraged, right? Like, wow, I mean, maybe I should tell them to up the dose. Maybe I should tell them I should be laid up like this guy because maybe I wouldn't have cancer right now. You can't do that. You can't compare yourself to everybody else's journey. Everyone's going to be different. Some people are going to experience pain in different ways. Some people are going to have it early on. Some people are going to have it later. But can I just tell you, do not get into comparison contrast, and do not feel discouraged if you didn't experience something that they did. You didn't get the win that they did. Or don't feel terrible because your nausea and yours just lasted longer and it laid you up and it made you more fatigued, and that's okay. Your body's different. Your cancer might be different. Your drugs might be different. And different things like that. And so you're in a testing phase. You're learning what you can eat, what you can't, how you have to hydrate. All these things are learning phases that you're trying to go through, and it's different now than it was before cancer. So if I can just tell you, don't be sad or discouraged because your experience is harder, because it will be in some ways. Just count on it, and it's okay. And if anything, if I could encourage you, celebrate what they got, right? I mean, celebrate that somebody made it through and has no cancer. Celebrate that somebody went through and their journey was less. Celebrate that their chemotherapy wiped out cancer faster. Celebrate those moments, because those are beautiful moments for people who are going through a terrible, terrible thing like you. And so celebrate it. And if you celebrate it, then I think you help your mental health. But if you just get discouraged by it and you look at it and it looks terrible for you, can I just say this? It's okay for you to feel what you're feeling. Okay, don't add to your discouragement by being filled with shame about feeling that way. It's okay to feel that way. So I can't stress that enough, that as you're going through all of this, you're going to have highs and lows, and you're going to see other people have victories, and you celebrate those victories, you celebrate your own victories, but you really, really don't carry the shame of your true feelings. Like, right? As much as I want to celebrate my friends' victories, I can still, celebrate and feel a little bit discouraged about it. And that's okay. That's human. That's human. That's okay for me to feel that way. We don't want to live there, right? And so then that's where we have to not compare, not contrast, and not do those things, but then realize that you're a unique fighter, and your fight is different, and maybe it's more challenging. And the key thing is keep swinging, and keep doing this. And I'll close with this illustration. I was listening to a buddy put a post from some time ago, and he was talking about a bear attack that happened when he was on a hunting trip with 5-6 other guys. And what had happened was that they had been elk hunting, and they kind of hung up the elk exactly how you're supposed to do it, separated from the carcass. There were definitely grizzly bears in this area of Alaska. And so they had done everything right. And so they let their guard down. And what happened is they're all sitting there and they're making sandwiches, and this bear comes in and attacks them. And so I'm not going to go into all the detail, it's not important, all that stuff. What I want you to understand is that what he said was that he didn't react the way that he thought he would. Being a hunter, and he always thought, man, when that happens, I'll grab my pistol, or that happens, I'll do this. And he just froze and was scared, and then moved. And the good news is no one was hurt. It wasn't probably a miracle, an act of God for no one to be hurt by this charging grizzly bear. But I just want you to understand that the takeaway for this, to relate it to chemotherapy, is this. You can conjure up in your mind that you're the toughest person on the face of the earth, that you eat nails for breakfast, and that you can conquer anything. And then you can walk into this journey against cancer, and it will hand you your ass. It will. And it will deliver and make a coward out of you. And you can, so in other words, you can talk a tough game, you can have a mental image, you can do all those things. And there are aspects of this that are going to wreck you, that are going to be so difficult that you need other people, and you need people to surround you, and you need God, and you need prayer, and you need reliance, you need consistency. You're going to get up mornings and cry because it's the 15th, 20th time that you've woken up in severe pain, and you're just tired of it. So, don't sweat that. Don't feel like you have to hide that. Don't feel like you gloss that over. You walk that privately. You tell your wife, you tell your husband, you tell your friends, and you get surrounded by care, because just like that attack, he thought he was going to react a certain way, and he would be able to help his brother who was in that group and everything and all of a sudden the situation came on him, and he froze, and he didn't do what he thought he would do in that circumstance. I think any one of us, if we were to look at that, we would be like, that's okay. I mean, good grief. It's a 1,200 pound, 11 and a half foot tall grizzly bear. That's probably, I don't know if any of us are going to react the way we thought we would. But that's what you're facing with cancer. You're facing a 1,200 pound, 11 and a half foot grizzly bear. And it'll bring a test to each of us. And what you have to do is, with everything, you got to hold on to hope. Whether you have faith or not, I have a faith in Jesus Christ, and when I see what Jesus went through to endure the cross and to suffer the shame and all of those things that went through it, I know that his word tells me that he looked forward to the hope that was set before him. And it says that he endured the cross and the suffering and the shame because he could look forward to that day, to that promise that his Father made. He was going to be raised from the dead. He was going to be seated at the right hand of his Father. Those things were going to come true. And so as he looked to those promises and he maintained that hope, it allowed him to endure what he had to go through. I could give you other examples of Paul and of Peter and others. When we read, we know that when we trust in that hope and the promises of God, there's something there that's bigger to our life than just cancer, than just the momentary circumstances that we're going through. And so fight for that. Fight for, you're right, we may not get a pass on suffering. We may not get a pass on cancer. It may get the better of us. It may destroy our bodies. We could die. Those are all truths. But at the very end, it's like, can you hold on to hope in spite of that? Can you look forward to the promises of God? And can you just hold strongly to those? Because that's what's going to get you through. And the more people that you can surround who continue to share that hope with you, the better off you're going to be, because they will be your legs and feet when you need them. All right? So understand, your journey is your journey. Don't comparison and contrast. Understand that what some people experience may not happen to you, and that might be a good thing. Maybe it's not going to be as bad for you. Maybe things will be easier for you. So don't go into chemotherapy doom and gloom. Keep your head up, respond to things as they come, and learn from your body. Take notes, take a journal, understand what works, what doesn't, and keep trying to figure it out as best you can. And know that as you endure rounds, you will become more resilient in many ways, but the most important ways are mentally and with your faith, your spiritual side of things. But also understand you're human, and you will have ups and downs, and you will have lots of emotions, and that's okay too. And that's just a side effect of this whole thing, right? Like, it's not just what the drugs do. It's not just, do I lose my hair? Do I not? Am I nauseous? Am I not? It's this daily grind, right? And that's why you see me always wearing stuff that says grind on it, like this shirt and everything, because to me that keeps me in the grind. I'm just going to keep grinding. All right. So you keep grinding too. And if you ever have any more questions, or you need somebody to encourage you or just bounce stuff off of, then don't hesitate to reach me. My email is prevalent@stages.community. And you can also find me on Facebook, Pete Heiniger. You'll see that. You'll see Stages. Just DM me, write me a direct message, and I'll get back to you, and then I'll call if I can, and we'll start talking. I'm glad to be there for you. So love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.